Hey everyone, it's Margie Walden here with Peace of Mind in our first video for 2020. So, just like we did in 2019, I want to start off the series of videos with a mental health topic. And once again, I want to talk about suicide. So, we talked about suicide prevention in the first series, and I think that we do a really great job about suicide awareness, but we really don't do anything to be proactive and to posture ourselves with the right equipment or tools for preventative, right? We're just aware that suicide is out there, that we're all vulnerable to it. We're aware of some of the early warning signs and some of the resources that are available to us. But I think that we don't really do anything to be proactive and have some plans in place that if not probably if, but when we get to some low points in our life, to potentially avoid if we get to that stage, right? And so what does that look like? How do we do that? How do we get there? I think that one thing is the Air Force has the CAF, which is the Comprehensive Airman Fitness, right? And so what is the CAF? It's really comprised of 4 pillars, and that is mental, physical, spiritual, and social, right? So I kind of think of those as 4 tires on a car. And if one gets out of balance, you're not going to have such a smooth ride, right? That's much like life. And so the same thing you could apply to if you had a car that was a 4-cylinder, right? And it's not quite all 4 cylinders are firing right. So it's not going to be quite the smooth running. And so kind of think of that like your 4 pillars. So I think we do a really good job at physical, right? We've got the PT down, we've got nutritions, we know how to properly eat. Some of us choose not to, but nonetheless, we get the education there for that, right? And then we have many resources available for us spiritually, right? Whether that be chaplains or whatever that looks like it's different for everybody, right? But there's plenty of things out there for us to rely on spiritually. Meditation, different religious um, options for people, and meditation, right? Different things like that. And then socially, hopefully, you have some kind of social network, friends, family that you can rely on, right? But the mental piece, we don't really do such a great job on, I think. We have resources available to us, but I think it's just still really people are unafraid or afraid to ask for help rather, and afraid to use those resources because of potential impacts on our careers, or also just unaware of when we actually need them, right? Or having that plan in place of when to use those. And so I think if we get more proactive with that and saying, all right, here's what I'm going to do if this happens, and here's some things that are available to me and some things that we can do to combat that. And then we'd be more proactive, because I guarantee you life is going to throw you into some dark places at some point in your life, whether that be betrayal, letdown, relationship related. It could be financial, right? It could be just loss of a loved one. It could be something really traumatic. It could be failure, right? So many things can set us emotionally back and into some ugly places sometimes, and sometimes just temporarily, right? So, as a firearms instructor, we teach a color code of awareness for our students, and we say the best way to avoid using a firearm or a gunfight, right, is to avoid the situation altogether. And how do we do that? And it's by our mental awareness, right? And so the same thing can hold true for our mental health. And so they use a color code of awareness that was originally developed by Colonel retired Jeff Cooper, and he created this for law enforcement to just kind of make them cognitively aware of their mental awareness, where they are. And he has shown where how this is important to recognize and why it's important to recognize. And so a lot of times in our firearms training, you're going to teach your students that basically condition white is usually associated with unaware. So when are we unaware of our surroundings? When we're sleeping, or when we're really focused on a task, when we're on our cell phones, right? Um, Sometimes that drive, what is it, 15 minutes to and from your location, they say that most accidents happen because you're kind of checking out at that point, probably going through those grocery checklists and what to, right? Getting to that next transitional phase. I'm sure you've all done it, but driven somewhere and you realize, man, I don't even remember making those last turns because we did it just out of habit, right? And that's kind of scary when we're in that white unaware phase. And then there's a yellow phase. So we talk about the yellow phase as the awareness phase, when you should be aware of your surroundings. And so you should kind of always be in a state of awareness, but is that going to happen all the time? No, not likely. Hopefully you can get unaware when you're sleeping. Hopefully sometimes you can get a little complacent in your home and a little bit more relaxed, right? But you never want to be completely unaware. And so the same thing, we can morph that over to our mental health. So you're unaware in the white phase of, some things that are going on with you, maybe behavioral change, some things that are potentially affecting you, whether you're unconsciously ignoring that, right, and not even aware. And then the awareness phase, when you get into that yellow phase, maybe you're aware, but you're not really, you're kind of aware, maybe some of the behavioral changes, maybe you're depressed, maybe you're acting out a little bit, angry, some kind of changes, right? And some kind of awareness of your mental health, right? How am I? I'm happy, I'm down, I'm depressed, I'm sluggish, I'm not feeling well. And so then you go into the orange phase. And so orange is kind of something's happening, but I don't kind of know what. So something different, right? So maybe you're out in public and you hear a loud bang, and it could be something as simply as a car backfiring, or it could be a gunshot, right? Where somebody starts to get really loud and you think maybe there's a domestic or a robbery taking place, but it could be something as simple as somebody just really excited to see somebody they haven't seen in a really long time, right? Those over dramatic females running and hey, right? So it could be something that's bad or not bad. And so during that phase, same thing with your mental health. So maybe something is making you more aware. So maybe you're starting to feel a little bit angry or agitated, right? Or maybe you're feeling a little bit down and depressed, or maybe you just don't have the energy levels you do. It could be something that's medically wrong, right? Or something that is mentally wrong that's affecting you. And maybe you are aware. Maybe you've recently had a breakup. Maybe you've experienced some loss or some change. So different things that can affect our emotions, right? Some health problems. So all of that is just saying, okay, I'm aware of this. Some things are changing. Some things are happening. So it could be something temporary, right? You maybe applied for a job and you didn't get that job. And so you have to suffer through that loss or accept that defeat, right? So maybe it's just something temporary, but maybe it's something huge, like the breakup of a loved one, right? Maybe you got betrayed by a friend. Maybe it's something wrong with your health, or you lost a loved one, something life-changing, right? Traumatic. So it depends on what it is and how it's going to affect you. But the important piece here is to be aware and to recognize, right, that something's going on, and to understand whether or not you need to take action, right? So same thing with, we'll take it back to our awareness state. So in that awareness state, if something, was that a muffler or was that a gunshot? Do I need to take cover? Do I need to go into that action mode? Same thing with your mental health. So let's take it over here. All right, I am feeling X. I am exhibiting Y for behaviors, right? Just recognizing those changes and being more consciously aware that, moods, right? Some of those things could be hormone imbalance, right? Something you're eating, something health-wise, right? I know I recently threw my back out, and I was out of the count for a good 10 days, and that affected me because I was doing really good with my workout, so it affected me mentally because I like to work out. I like how that makes me feel mentally and physically even, right? Makes me feel healthier. It makes me feel good about myself. So I didn't work out for almost a month, and it kind of put me in a slump there for a little minute. But I'm back and I'm okay. And I knew it was temporary, but it was health related, and it wasn't like I could just get up and go to the gym. I could barely walk, so I had to get some adjustments and work through that. But I went and I sought um, professional help. Right, had to go to a doctor and a chiropractor and get some muscle relaxers and get adjusted and things like that. Um, Getting old really stinks, so there's that. But same thing when you get a cold, right? If you get that crud, you might try to take it on yourself to go ahead and knock that baby out with a little bit of vitamin C or some rest. And then sometimes it takes a little bit more than that, right? It'll take your that NyQuil that'll knock you out, and then maybe some of that plop plop fizz fizz Alka-Seltzer. But then sometimes that's not enough, and you have to go to a doctor and get prescribed something, perhaps either an antibiotic or maybe a shot, right? You have to get one of those steroid shots, an antihistamine, whatever it is. But sometimes we need to seek out that professional help in order to get over that slump and get better. And so the same thing holds true for your mental health. Sometimes you can go it and get through it, and then sometimes you can't. But the important thing to note is that in that orange phase, we often teach that we want to have some kind of plan of action, right? Kind of like a fire drill, especially for your home defense, right? If you're out in public, you should be looking for those escape routes and places for cover, right? If something were to go down. Same thing holds true for your mental health. Okay, if I'm not through this in, a couple days or whatever that looks like for you, it's going to vary for everybody. But what is my checklist look like? What are my other options? What are some things that I can do? Exercise, journal, right? Breathing, meditation, seeking out spiritual guidance, maybe talking to a clergy or some kind of pastor or your minister at your church, and then perhaps even getting professional help. I think a lot of times military members are reserved about doing so because they are very proudful, and it's like some kind of weakness if you reach out and get help. Also, sometimes they're afraid of the effects that it can have on your career. But most of the resources we have at our disposal are they are confidential, and a lot of times the stuff that we're experiencing is temporary, right? So it's more like an anxiety type of thing. It's treated, and it's really not going to have any impact on your career. So the more important thing is you got to get yourself right. And so whatever that takes, don't be afraid to reach out and get that and take those measures to do so. But have that plan in action before you get to that point, right? Because it's not like damage control when you get there, because you're not going to be in the right state of mind, and you're not going to probably have the energy and the forethought and even willingness to do that. So I think it's really important to say, okay, here's resources available to me. Yes, life is going to throw me a slug once in a while, and I'm going to get down and I'm going to get knocked out. What am I going to do to combat that? And don't be afraid to be able to say, I'm going to get professional help. There's nothing wrong with that. And so that's where we need to be more proactive instead of saying, all right, and waiting until the very last minute. So with regards to that color chart, red is like our action phase, right? That's when we either have to run, hide, fight, or with regards to suicide, we're going to say that's the action phase where we're looking and seeking out ways to potentially carry out the suicidal thoughts, right? And that's where we don't want to go down that road. So I will tell you, once upon a time in my life, when I was in the orange phase, had some things happen to me that made me very down and very sad. And I would never commit suicide. I've seen the effects of that and my family and firsthand, and how that leaves people, and it doesn't really take away the pain. It gives it to somebody else. It passes it on. And so I personally, because of my faith too, would never do that. But I can tell you there was a point in my life where I would wish that a tree would have fell on me rather than feel and go through what I was going through. And it was quite, I want to say 3 weeks that I felt that way. I remember driving to work thinking, oh God, just plant a tree on me and, end this, because I didn't want to feel that way anymore. So why am I telling you this? Is because I got through it eventually. But I did everything. I journaled. I exercised. I was running like almost 5 and 10 miles a day. I was um, praying. I did a lot of praying and a lot of reading the Bible, and things just weren't helping. And so finally, I reached out to Military One Source. I used that resource. Luckily, I was able to get a counselor that was a really good fit for me. Sometimes that is not going to happen on the first try. There's some strange, interesting people that are in counseling, and so not always a good fit, but that doesn't mean give up. So if it's not a right person for you, try somebody else. You know what I mean? If it's not something that's working for you, but certainly don't hold things in. Don't continue to do what you're doing and think you're just gonna go it alone. If it's not getting better, don't be afraid to reach out and get some help and seek other ways, because again, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. So that's where you don't want to get. And important to note too, if you do get into that orange phase where things are, you're not feeling so well and you're wishing you were out of the picture, that's the time that you want to get potential hazards out of your reach, such as medications, firearms, right? Either putting a lock on them and giving the key to somebody, or getting the firearms to somebody that you trust until you start to feel better. So I hope that everybody has a blessed new year, and that you enjoy the new series of videos. And I hope that you all start looking into some mental health preventative measures, such as doing some things that are healthy for you mentally. That is exercising, and that's meditating, that's doing some breathing exercises. I know there's one that behind your teeth, if you hold your tongue on the roof of your mouth right behind the two front teeth, and you do this 3 times. You got to keep the pressure there. You breathe in for a count of 7, hold it for a count of 8, breathe out for a count of 9. You do that 3 times. There's actually been proof that stimulates brain waves in a very healthy manner. So if you're having those thoughts at night and you just racing thoughts and you can't seem to, the anxiety, it helps people with anxiety. Or if you're having trouble falling asleep, that's one exercise you can do. Some belly breathing, something simple as coloring or watching fish. Do something, get out there, talk to people. Lots of options out there. Google it, research, but do that beforehand so you have some ideas of, if you get to that sluggish and that ugly place, that ugly, dark, yucky place, that you'll be able to combat that, right? It's like having your firearm on you. If you need to use those things, you'll be able to have them at your disposal, not go searching for them when you're there. It's kind of too late, right? So you should probably practice a little bit before you get there. And so I hope these videos are helping everybody, and or at least one person. And so again, we'll begin the firearms training phase here in the next video. So take care and God bless. Be safe.